Hey, welcome back into the Sampleist, everybody. At the time of this recording, it's January the 1st, so I thought after a big night out, what better way to kick off the new year than with an awesome new instrument review. Today, we're diving into Hein Winds Ensemble, a comprehensive orchestral woodwind library designed to bring breathtaking realism and flexibility to your compositions. Created by Hein, this library meticulously blends individual recordings into ensemble performances, offering unmatched control and precision. The collection features 12 woodwind ensembles ranging from small, intimate groups to large symphonic sections. It's got 30 gigabytes of content, 16 articulations, and an innovative set of features like notehead designer and phase-aligned technology, so it ensures unparalleled expressiveness. Hein Woodwinds Ensemble runs in the full version of Kontakt and boasts extensive customizability from dynamics to effects and even auto vibrato. It's currently available for €299. We're grateful to Chris for making this library available for review, and as is always the case at the Sampleist, we maintain our independence and ensuring our unbiased perspective, and this means that Chris has had no input into the making of this video. Be sure to stick around all the way through to the end because I'll highlight some key presets and I'll share a short piece I composed using Hein Winds Ensemble. If you enjoy these deep dives into virtual instruments, please like and subscribe and stay connected. Alright, let's get started. So I've loaded up Kontakt, I've loaded up the flute's full patch, but before we dive into it, let's have a look at how it's all set out. On the left-hand panel, all the instruments are laid out before us. There's flutes, clarinets, oboes and bassoons in both a small and a large variation. There's some deep flutes, there's some deep fat wood, flutes and horns combinations, and even a piccolo flute. And over on the right, the instrument itself. Now, I'll say from the outset, I don't know about you, but this is really raw and fresh for me because I've never used a Hein instrument before. So in many respects, what you're getting from me today is that raw, fresh approach. And my sense about it right from the outset is that I'm struck by words like genius, flexibility, programmability, extraordinary detail, but also trepidation and overwhelm because there's just so much going on here that I haven't got enough time in my life yet to be able to explain everything that's going on with this extraordinary instrument. But I'm going to try, but with the time we have got today, I'm only going to extract out the key features that really stood out to me that I think will help you understand where Chris is coming from. And the best way to really get a straight out of the box appreciation of an instrument is to just put fingers to keyboard and let's see what this sounds like. That is an extraordinary way to start. This is the sustain patch. It's very much legato. And what I discovered from playing with it, you can play both polyphonically or in legato. So there's your multiple notes, but the legato between it is just beautiful. Well, that's the first thing that really stood out to me. The legato is just beautiful. The transitions are exquisite. How fast can you play? Now, I'm not a great keyboard player, but I'm trying to emulate the very rapid passages that flute players are known for, and this instrument pulls it off in spades. Okay, so let's have a little bit more of a detailed look at what's going on under the hood. Now, all the features I'm about to show you are consistent across all the instruments, but I'll use the flute's full patch to illustrate what they're all about. Now, as I found out, there is an awful lot going here, and Hein has been able to manage that complexity in a really clever way. So This part here I'm looking at is the play mode, where if you want to just literally play without getting too involved in the configurability and setting up all the parameters, off you go, you can just start playing straight away, as we just heard. I really like this little feature. See the animation in the top left-hand corner here? Showing you how a flautist would actually finger each note. Beautiful, lovely touch of realism. In the control tab, you have a number of controls that show you the velocity. So at the moment, and I'll extend on this momentarily, I'm playing in a velocity mode. So the harder you hit the keys, the higher the volume. And that's in the dynamic mode. It shows you the dynamic layers, of which there is 6 in this particular instance. The vibrato. Xmorph is another method, and I'll show you shortly about how you can control this. And there's something here called the note head. Again, I'll get into that in a moment. The room is about setting up the reverb settings, of which you can choose different IRs and a big symphony hall. You can control the volume and the delay of them, highly sustainable, so have a play there. At the heart of this instrument is the ability to control a range of articulations from using the key switches that are marked in green at the bottom of your screen. So as you can see here, as I'm going through the key switches, I have access to different articulations. The articulations of the key switches in red are special types of key switches called hotkeys, and I can talk about them a little bit more shortly. Let's move over to the articulation presets window. Now, for me, this is where the excitement and genius comes into this instrument, but also equally the terrifying nature of it. And I say terrifying nature, half in jest, but half serious, because I've never seen so much detail and configurability in a virtual instrument, as is the case here with the Chris Hein Woodwinds. I'm wondering out loud if this is also typical of Chris's other instruments. And as I said, this is my first foray into his world. There is so much going on here that I will not have enough time in my lifetime to explain the full detail of what this is about. To his credit, I applaud Chris for his very detailed manual, and I urge you to read through that manual in some detail. Those who are familiar with my videos have heard me complain in the past about how many virtual instrument vendors out there don't even bother creating a manual, but Chris has not let us down in this case, and it's very much needed. The detail and the configurability is off the charts, and that's where the overwhelm can potentially come into it. But having played with it for a few hours, I'm now learning to understand how to manage that complexity. What this panel represents is the ability to configure in exorbitant detail the behavior of each and every articulation, of which there are 26, I understand. Some 20-odd articulations and 6 or so hotkeys. And hotkeys are a variation of a type of articulation, which I'll touch on shortly. So what this means for your playability and programmability is that every time you switch using your key switches, as you can see here, I'm now hitting the number of green keys down here. The parameters that are set are unique to every different articulation. So let's return momentarily to the sustain patch. Some of the key features I'll outline here, and as I said earlier, I haven't got enough time in my lifetime to describe the detail of what's going on here. I urge you to please read the manual that Chris has provided. It's an extraordinary document, which is just as well because there's so much going on. I've said in the past, for those who are familiar with my videos, that I complain how many vendors don't even bother giving you a manual. Thankfully, Chris has not let us down here, and it's well worth the read. You'll need it to understand what's going on if you really want to get under the hood. So some of the key features of this particular panel. You have the ability to control the behavior of your key switches themselves, which is obviously the ability to assign the key, in this case C#0 for the sustain patch, but also you can control whether the behavior is permanent, meaning it's locked to that key switch, or you may choose to say that it's only available while hold. That means that the articulation is only active so long as you're actually holding down the key itself. As soon as you release the key switch, it reverts back to the previous permanent articulation. The next note is another level of granular detail that means that the articulation is only valid for the next note that's played after that key switch is hit. As soon as you release the key that you've played, it reverts back to the previous articulation. That's an extraordinary detailed level of control of your key switch behavior. The other panel I want to bring to your attention that I think is really quite important is how to control the keyboard dynamics. By default, it plays on keyboard, so that means it's a velocity-based approach. The harder you hit the keys, the louder the sample. If you prefer, you can assign the X morph, which is using a slider, and by default, in this case here it's CC11, means that if you prefer to use a slider to control the overall dynamics, then that's what you can do here. And that's my preferred way, but hey, that's just a personal preference. You can see here the indicates the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the different morph layers through, and also a sliding scale. Keyboard and X-morph is, as the name suggests, a combination of the two, but it's very clever in the sense that it doesn't mix up the two. So if you hit a high note here, you can control the dynamics using the slide as well, and the two work together. And you can also have an auto X-morph where you allow the engine to control how that dynamic behavior works. Itself can be set up as a number of presets, and you can edit the control value of the dynamics itself. Again, another extraordinary level of detail in the control of the dynamic behavior. For those who want to get under even more detail, Chris has got a concept called Notehead Editor. What I understand the Notehead Editor to do, it allows you to vary the attack shape of each note, and it's an extraordinary level of detail. I haven't used it too much at the moment, but if you really want to get to that nuanced detail about release samples and different shapes, for each aspect of the head, you can change the head volume, the fade out speed, the out delay, the fade in delay. You can copy and paste them. You can set it up for each of a crotchet or a half note or a full note to an eighth note and a 16th note. Extraordinarily high levels of configurability on the note head editability. Down here you can control the vibrato, whether it's an LFO vibrato or an auto vibrato. You can control the speed detection for fast passages, the number of players in the ensemble, whether it's a solo or up to 5 players in this case here. Over here in the main, you can control the overall volume of the patch, the panorama being the panning of left and right. You can transpose up and down the semitones as you see fit. You can also control the noise, the noise that a natural flautist or any other instrument would play, the keys and the air. You can control the transients and the attack. You can control the legato in the behavior, whether it's polyphonic or legato. You can control the legato settings, setting in the offset and the fade out and the fade in time, the length of them, the time in on the the offset and the tuning and the slope. The true legato controlling the volume, the offset, the fade in length in milliseconds, and the fade out length in milliseconds. And also you can control the transition speed and also a chord detection time for managing the polyphonic nature between, well, legato, polyphonic legato, and natural monophonic legato. Whew, I can tell you now, the detail in this is extraordinary if you really, really want to get under the hood and have that absolute nuance and control. You can control the glide mode between notes in that legato, the speed of the glide and the number of steps. You can control the scale, whether it's chromatic major, natural minor, harmonic minor in the scale. You can create a target from a sustain or any other articulation to its target. Oh, it's absolutely insane, the level of control here. And this, just to remind you, is just for the sustain patch. If you choose another articulation, you can set up all those details again just for that articulation. Now, my solemn advice is if you decide to employ all these detail, be sure to save your patch using the traditional save as approach in Kontakt, or else it won't obviously save it and it'll revert back to its default settings when you next load the patch. The Settings tab, another layer of detail for you to explore. You can control the reverb, the delay settings. There's some chorus that you can change the presets of, the phaser, a flanger, compressor, equalizers, and a filter. Moving over to the vibrato tab gives you extraordinary control over the behavior of the vibrato. For each of these, you can create a number of presets, each which has a different strength of the vibrato and the speed of the vibrato, whether it's a sine wave, triangle, saw, or square waves. You can control the volume, the offset, the tuning of it, the equalizer of it. There's an auto vibrato setting. You can control the speed and paint in your desired pattern. The volume curve can be automated or manually defined. Tune and the EQ, again, creating a number of different presets. Again, an extraordinary level of detail where most vendors would be just happy to give you a vibrato control and maybe a CC to control whether it's on or off. Chris has given you another next level of control over that vibrato if that nuance and detail is to your liking. Phew, I'm 10 minutes into this video and I have barely scratched the surface of what you can achieve with Chris Hein's Woodwinds Ensemble with the detailed features that are available across all the articulation management and the settings and the vibrato. Let's go back to basics for now and let's have a listen to the instruments themselves. I opened this video with a flute. I'm now going to show you a taste of the other instruments and the clarinets, oboes, bassoons and deep floats to give you an understanding of what is on offer. So there you have it, a cross-section across the instruments of this fine instrument to give you a taste of its range and possibility. Hope you enjoyed that. But now it's time to listen to it in context. So I'm now going to show you a short composition I wrote using Hein Winds Ensembles, and on the other side of that, I'll give you my final thoughts and we'll wrap up today's video. So now to my final thoughts. Hein's Wind Ensemble demonstrates why Chris has such a highly regarded reputation in the world of virtual instruments. He's been a pioneer of the field for many years, and the experience and engineering prowess shines through with this offering. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I approached this instrument with equal parts excitement and trepidation. The level of detail and programmability in his ensemble here is off the charts impressive, allowing detailed programming that's beyond anything I've seen in any other instruments. If that's your thing, then you're going to love this, but there is a trade-off, because the level of detail can be like drinking from a fire hose. It can be overwhelming for the new user, and I suspect most of it will not be utilised by the majority of users. That's not a criticism per se, but rather a recognition that not all features will appeal to the average user. That said, the quality of the recordings and the programming that's gone into it is some of the best I've ever heard. In many cases, I didn't even feel drawn to use the short articulations because playing short notes while in the legato sustain mode was just so good. I noticed that the run-ups articulations aren't tempo synced to your DAW. That'd be a nice touch to have in the future. And unless it escaped me, there is no microphone control available, just a single mix. That would mean a whole lot more work for Chris to produce, but I'm wondering if that might be attractive to high-end users in a professional release. Just a thought. On the whole, this offering will appeal to the serious composer who wants extraordinary control over their musical design and who also want an instrument that you have to master but you don't have to fight with. I'm intrigued to explore more of his catalogue now. And with that, it's time to wrap up this installment of the Sampleist. Thank you if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed today's video. But on your way out, please show your love and smash that like button, hit the subscribe and ring the bell, and you're all good to go in the world of virtual instruments. For now, this has been Greg Revell signing off, and as always, I urge you, please be sure to find your sound to find your soul. I'll see you in the next one.